In this video, I want to talk to you about what trauma is and the effects that it has on us, particularly on a neurological level. And in order for us to understand what trauma is, we first need to understand that our body has a stress response system built into it. It is a rather complicated system, but it is designed to help us when we encounter stress. Let me give you some examples about how it helps us. Have you ever burnt yourself on a stovetop or had maybe a different type of burn or injury? I imagine that if you had, that your memories of that are quite vivid, right? That's our body's stress response system turning on and telling us, okay, you need to imprint this in your memory so that you avoid this circumstance in the future, right? That's a positive benefit of our body's stress response system. Also, consider some other situations and how your body reacts to them. Think about a time you gave a public speech, or when you got in a car accident, or if you were ever hiking my most favorite hike, which is Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, when you're standing on the edge of a cliff. What was your body's reaction in these situations, right? I imagine your hands got a little sweaty, maybe even you felt a surge of energy through your body, and you even started to shake with adrenaline, right? What's our stress response system doing? It is activating our nervous system to protect us. And this is a good thing, right? And our body is built to absorb stress in a healthy way. Okay, when we understand that, then we can start to understand what trauma is. Because trauma is not something that occurs to us externally. It's the effects of situations where the stress of that situation exceeds our body's capacity to deal with that stress. You see that our body, when we are in these situations, has to take rather drastic measures to limit the pain and the suffering. And the consequence of those drastic measures is what trauma is. Let me show you and walk you through what these drastic measures are. And it's really a domino-like effect that occurs within our body's nervous system. The first domino here is what's called dissociation. Now, dissociation is when our brain and our body disconnect. An example of what commonly occurs when people experience trauma is they numb from that situation. This is their brain disconnecting from their body. And the reason why they do it is to protect us from the bad feelings in those situations. And while it's helpful in the moment, what ends up happening is that disconnection lingers and it has long-term effects if left untreated. So that connection between our mind and our body after a traumatic experience is less or weaker than it was before that experience, particularly if left untreated. So that's the first domino that occurs when we experience trauma. Our mind disconnects from the body. The second domino involves just a function in our mind, and it's what's called disintegration. What we need to understand here is that our mind is made up of three different brain regions: our reptilian, our mammalian, and our human brain. And our reptilian and mammalian brains operate largely implicitly. They're kind of our knee-jerk reactions to the situations that we encounter. Our human brain is where our conscious thought resides. In an ideal world, maybe when we're in a stressful situation or something that is scary occurred, then our reptilian and our mammalian brains will activate. They will start to turn on. And if we are not in any danger, then our human brain should step in and regulate the reptilian and the mammalian brains. Well, when we experience trauma, what ends up happening is these long-range neural connections in our mind that integrate these three major brain regions, they get damaged and they don't work as effectively as they had before. And so in future stressful situations, what ends up happening is that the reptilian and the mammalian brains operate on overdrive, and the human brain it struggles to step in and regulate that overdrive. This makes us more sensitive to threats. Which gets us to our third domino, which is we start to misencode the world around us. You see, when our stress response system is working well, it tells us when dangerous things are dangerous and safe things are safe. But when our stress response system is off kilter or immature, it has a tendency to tell us that safe things are dangerous and that dangerous things are safe. So this is why, and I use an example oftentimes from a movie Pitch Perfect, that there's a suggestion for them to do something differently and the leader shuts that down really quickly and is not very nice about it, right? This idea to do things differently it's a safe thing. But the leader's body doesn't perceive them as being safe, that we are being challenged. They're seeing a safe circumstance as being dangerous, and they overreact to that situation. So this is the third domino occurs, misencoding. We start to interpret safe things in our environment as being dangerous and dangerous things as being safe. And then the fourth domino is we start our window of tolerance becomes more narrow. We start to see small slights as big threats, and that throws us outside of our window of tolerance where we begin to enter into fight, flight, or freeze modes. And so when we experience traumatic events, what's going on is our window of tolerance is getting narrower, and it becomes easier for us to get thrown into these fight, flight, or freeze modes. So these are the four dominoes of engaging in or experiencing trauma situations where the stress of that situation exceeds our body's capacity to deal with that. Now, the combination of this is really interesting. When we have this combination of dissociation and disintegration, we have a hard time introspecting and connecting with our body. This equals low self-awareness. When we have disintegration, we are overly sensitive to threats to ourselves, and we have a hard time focusing on others' needs, which means we have a low other awareness. If you've ever seen a framework about emotional intelligence, you would recognize that emotional intelligence has two components, self-awareness and other awareness, and regulation for both of those things. So this is really fascinating to me because when we experience trauma, the negative consequences of that is effectively a lowering of our emotional intelligence. And it isn't until we start to heal our mind, create greater association between our mind and our body, and also integrate our mind so that our three major brain regions work more effectively together. It's only when that happens that we improve in our emotional intelligence.